have never desired your good opinion.
People fear what they do not understand.
I have a headache, a badge, and a gun.
Power is yours.
Behave.
I was just trying to start a conversation.
And share the wonders I've seen.
Hi, and welcome back to The Wonders I've Seen, where there's no such thing as weird or normal, there's just different. I'm your host, Tanagra, and this is the second and final part of our two-part discussion on video game characters and sexuality in games with high player choice. Once again, I'm joined by my guest, Miss Foxy Mittens. As you probably gathered from part 1, our discussion centers around the epic DragonAge saga, one of the best examples of gender and sexuality diversity and inclusivity in modern gaming. So sit back and enjoy the wonders. Well, okay, I actually want to go back to, I want to get back to Sarah and the tropes and the representation.
Yes.
And the backlash,
right.
like, for lack of a better way to put it. But you were saying that with DragonAge 2, one of the problems you felt that it had for bi representation was that it felt like it was just, it was easier for the developers. So do you think that if they would have made, like, when the player's choosing and if they had actually made being bi an inherent part of the character build, that it wouldn't have felt so erasing?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, because then it shows that they are actually paying attention to, all of our players, would
right.
be willing to date both genders or all genders. I think so, because then it would be inclusive in that it becomes a part of their storylines and a part of their character. It makes them feel more like people.
So now, was this not addressed at all? Because I actually really haven't watched a lot of DragonAge 2 Let's Play. So was it not addressed at all? Or was it just like it was never mentioned, the sexuality, or like, oh, I'm bisexual, but now I am dating a man, or now I am dating a woman, when it would come up in the gameplay? Yeah,
it's usually, if it does come up at all, and a couple times it does here and there, it's like a one-off line.
Okay.
It's not,
so it's very throwaway.
Yeah, it is. Or this person will be like, oh, I didn't know, it feels like tokenism almost, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, so you like men and women, and they're like, yeah, they say something super crude about genitalia, and you're like, that's great.
Well, I was also wondering that when you're talking about like the threesome, and I was like, oh, is it 2 men and a woman, or 2 women and a man? Because even that, whichever combination of that, carries its own tropes, and like, oh, of course.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, of course.
Well, and that's kind of the funny thing, is that like once it happens, it's just kind of like, oh, yep, that happened.
Right.
And then it's like never.
Okay.
Even though if that happened to your friend group, everybody would be talking about it.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Definitely, to say the least.
All right, but then they listened, and we just had a broken hair tie. It's okay.
Oops. Oops. Oh man, all that audio. Oh, I'm sorry about that snap. Oh, that was not good.
No, it didn't. It didn't hit the whiskey or the microphone, so we're doing okay.
Yeah, all right. Hey,
So then the developers listen.
Yes.
And they're like, oh, bi erasure, pansexual erasure. That's a thing. And then they do better, and we get DragonAge Inquisition.
Yeah.
And so you were previously speaking about Sarah, and like maybe there's some possible backlash about her character.
Yeah.
Let's go into the tropes and the certain comfort people have with certain people of certain colors, of certain genders, being with certain people who look a certain way, and then if there's whatever that their sexuality, quote unquote, should be, and how their personality, quote unquote, should be, based on those things.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you think about Sarah, I personally think she's like super fun. But she's an interesting character to analyze, I guess is the easy way of saying it. Like I said, she's very openly, proudly a lesbian.
Right.
To some extent, she can be very crude about it. Yes, which carries a whole different kind of weight, Because then you also have to think about, like, her whole character is, like, pretty crude. Like, she's kind of a crude lady, says it like it is. She's very honest.
Part of her characterization.
Yeah, part of her characterization is very crude. But then at that point, you kind of go, okay, like, the crude lesbian, really?
Right.
Like, we're gonna go there.
Right. I was also gonna be like, how does she look? What does she dress like?
Yeah, so she grew up on the street, so she dresses kind of like ragtag, but she does have shorter hair. I wouldn't say like a male, you know, if you're going to put a label on it, I wouldn't say a male hairstyle,
right.
But it's definitely shorter. You know, she doesn't have like the stereotypical female lead super long flowing locks.
You're right.
By any means. So she kind of dresses a little bit like she's not in a dress or anything, like she's in pants and a shirt.
Yeah.
Just like, I mean, like everyone, I'm in pants and a shirt right now.
Yes.
But yeah, so it's interesting because you're like, okay, well, crude is just kind of her character, but at the same time, it's like, but the crude lesbian, really? Like, we're gonna go there, and like it, and then that's
playing into that stereotype.
Yeah, and then it plays into, you know, some really derogatory stereotypes of lesbians, and I'm not gonna say any words because I don't like saying them.
No.
Yeah. But and I heard a lot of guys, you know, because this game came out when I was in college. I heard, and I was friends with a lot of gamers. I had a lot of friends just be like, oh, you know, like, Sarah's just kind of like annoying and like super crude, and like she's just kind of a derogatory term.
Right.
And I was always just like, gosh, like, but you don't say that about like any of the other characters, right? Like,
yeah.
You don't. I mean, they said other things about other characters. Don't even get me started on Vivian's treatment because it's appalling. We'll get there. We will get there because, oh man. Yeah, and when it came to opinion polls, Sarah ranked very low more often than not.
Interesting.
Yeah. Whereas her romance, right, you look at her actual romance and you can go either a very like sexually explicit way, or you can go kind of like a more tender, sweet way, and it's like a nice, like fluffy romance. It's not anything like sexually explicit, and then the other route you go is like explicit. What's going on?
So now, I mean, our culture on a whole is more comfortable with two women being together, right, and the representation of like lesbians being sexual than they are with two men. So in this game, you're saying that Sarah can be sexually explicit. That's one way her romance can go. So is there a male character who's gay who also has that sexually explicit relationship as an option? Yeah,
that would be either Dorian or Iron Bull, which Iron Bull is available to romance as both male and female. But Dorian, it's not as explicit. But I mean, you know, you see a butt. you see a butt.
Butt graphics.
And so you get that nudity, which is usually what people go crazy for.
Right.
And you know, and he does like openly talk about like, you know, y'all's life in the bedroom.
Okay.
And you know, he'll talk about like, you know, he'll be standing there all naked and he's just like, we should, you know, redecorate this place and I want to make it look a little bit different. And stuff like that. So yeah, you do get the male equivalent option of that.
Okay. I mean, like, that's definitely good to hear.
Sorry.
It's all right. We have pets in the background. Very cute pets, but very noisy pets.
Yes.
Oops. Okay. Well, because I was wondering about that, because I definitely think that sometimes can be an issue that people are so comfortable exploiting women that they don't do it to men, even when they're trying to be aware and make that point. Like, they'll still are more likely to sexualize and exploit that with female characters than with male characters. So I guess that's good to hear.
Yeah.
They try to shy away from those tropes.
Yeah, I mean, definitely when you take, like, if I were to compare, you know, like the Dorian explicit love scene and the Sarah explicit love scene, the one that's more explicit is Sarah by a mile.
Really? Okay.
Yes, but also you don't get the option to have like this like, you know, tender non-explicit romance with Dorian. Like, you're like, whenever you romance Dorian.
Wait, hold on. So the
okay.
gay character doesn't get a Tinder romance?
Well, no, he does have a Tinder romance, but the butt scene, like, you're always gonna get the butt scene, but it does also lead to, like, tender moments, and I'm pretty sure, like, at the discussion that they're having, like, while y'all are both nude in your bedroom actually does change from, like, you know, kind of witty and quippy to, like, you know, just so you know, like, I really love you, you know,
okay.
and it becomes this, like, very intimate, both, you know, it is physically intimate, obviously, but also very emotionally intimate, especially for a character that isn't always, you know, totally upfront with what he's feeling, saying, doing.
All right.
He can be kind of elusive, but in that moment, you're like, oh, like, he's being really sincere. You know?
Because I would say, now, we can't, like...
Right, yeah.
have the sex crazed,
totally.
dashing gay male, like, cliche either. Come on, y'all.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, alright, so DragonAge Inquisition, good lesbian representation, good gay male representation. What about bisexual, pansexual? And then after we sort of discuss, like, your character options, I want to talk about how, as a player, can you try and change some of those if you want to? Or try and steer it one way or the other.
Yeah, so
pansexual characters or bisexual characters?
Yeah, so the pansexual and bisexual characters, so the big pansexual option is Iron Bull, because he's Kunari, he's not human or anything.
I saw him.
Yeah, and he, like I said, he likes redheads. His romance scenes, while they can be really explicit because he's kind of into kinks and a lot of that, it does ultimately end up with him, you know, falling in love with you, and it's really tender. But at the same time, when you first initially start a romance with him, it is a casual thing. Like, it's going to be this casual kink thing, and he's just like, I see you need to blow off steam.
I'm here for that.
I saw you looking at me. I know you saw me looking at you. Do you want to ride the bull? Sort of thing.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
And so it's like this casual thing, but you're like, oh my gosh, you know, like, so steamy. And then you walk up to him later and he's just like, hey. And you're like, hey, so, like, was that just a casual thing? And he's like, I mean, it can be. Like, do you want it to be just casual? And you can either be like, sure, and you could just have this casual thing going on with him, and then you can go and pursue someone else, and then eventually you're just like, hey, want to call it off, there's someone else I really care about. Then he's like, all right, cool, like, it was nice, like, it was this nice casual fling. Or you can be like, actually, I kind of want to be exclusive, I kind of want to be serious. And he's like, I mean, we can give it a shot, sure. And then that's when you dive deeper into his romance. So you do kind of get this option to be very laissez-faire with your emotions there. And then you have Josephine, who is who's bisexual, and hers is, her entire kind of plot line has to do with, like, her family, like, is struggling. She's from a noble family. And she's trying to, like, find out who's been double-crossing her family, killing her spies, and all that. And it becomes this crazy, like... I mean, no matter if you're playing a man or a woman, it's a really fun romance. Because it's kind of like... She's kind of... I wouldn't say princessy, but she's very aristocratic and, like, noble. And at some point, you have to, like, duel for her hand, sort of thing. Like, very aristocratic romance. Yeah. And, like, you have this kiss with her... And she, like, kicks her heel up in the air, you know, her foot up in the air. It's super cute. But her romance scenes, like, you never get a sexual scene with her.
And now, what is her sexuality?
She's bisexual.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. They're like, we're going to make up for this.
Yeah, they're like,
make up for you.
Yeah, and, you know, she gets this, like, really cute, like, and cute. Like, it's touching. It's tender. Right. It's definitely, like... fairy tale-ish, and there are a couple of these romances that are very fairy tale. You have some that are more adult. Yeah. You have some that you're just like, man, like, this is so emotional, and then it doesn't end well. You don't get a happy ending. We talked about that.
Saw that. Spoiler.
Yeah, spoiler alert. There are some that don't end well. All my tears. And then you have a few where it's like they're very, like, adult, you know, but, like, adult in... like, super mature, and of course both of those, the ones that I see as, like, you know, your quote unquote stereotypical like adult romances would be Cullen and Cassandra, both of whom are straight.
Okay.
Both of those romances are straight, and like with Cassandra, she's like this very tough woman, and yeah, she's a warrior, she's strong, she's great, and like when you're a guy and you're trying to romance her, like you find out that she wants to be romanced. She wants to be, you know, kind of swept off her feet a little bit, but at the same time she's kind of embarrassed about that side of herself, and she like doesn't want to talk about it. And it ends up with you, like, reading poetry with her, like, under the stars, naked, surrounded by candles. Like,
okay.
Romance. And
somebody's been reading some romance novels.
Oh, yeah. And then Cullen's is, like, you know, he's this strong guy who's always been in the military. And now he's fighting, you know, a lot with himself about, like, addiction and PTSD and like where he goes from here and like who is he really as a man,
right?
And like he wants to he wants to romance you so bad, but you're his superior, and he's like, oh, I don't know, like you know, we're mixing, you know, mixing politics and war with romance until eventually he's like, I can't take it anymore, and he like ravishes you on his desk, like a total drama. But when you think about like if you're, you know, like a soap opera almost, those would sort of be your romances, and it's you know, it's interesting to see how those play out versus, you know, a lot of the homosexual romances are a little bit more explicit, and but sometimes you can choose not to be. Right. But definitely as far as like, you know, I have all these, you know, maybe I am attracted to women, but I'm not a sexual person. Right. Because that happens, you know, people who aren't into sex fall in love all the time.
Yeah,
so then,
definitely. You
know, you can romance Josephine, who is, you know, you get this really, you know, touching, you know, total PG, you know, you get a little kisses and pecks in there, and it's cute.
But that's,
yeah. And then, you know, with Sarah, you can kind of do the same thing. It becomes like this cute little, if you choose to, romance that's very sweet, and you set this boundary, and she respects it, and it's nice. And then for some people who are like, no, you know, like, I want to romance multiple people, unfortunately, I guess one of the few drawbacks as far as it comes to romances with Dragon Age Inquisition is you can't have like an actual poly relationship.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, you
particularly because so many of those sexualities are compatible.
Yeah, like you can't enter into a poly relationship. You can't like have a threesome at all. They took that out, which
I was about to say, wait, did you just tell me that was like a huge option in 2?
Yeah, that was a huge option in 2, which, you know, I think we all know why.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, but they totally took that out, but also there weren't any like big poly romance options besides like you being super casual with Iron Bull, and then you could go and start romancing somebody else.
I mean, but that's also just modern dating.
Yeah, you know, I mean, like it's hookup culture.
Right, like, yeah.
Exactly. So that was the one thing that I think is interesting. And then if you were, because then that begs the question, right? Because you can do it. Like to say like, but it'd be so hard to program. Like,
right.
You could program it. Like as to how it would be programmed would be interesting to see, and like how that plays into narrative storytelling.
I was about to say, yeah, that'd actually be great though.
Yeah, like it would be really interesting. Like Like, I'm not poly myself, but if that was something that is like, yeah, no, like, I would love to see healthy representation of a polyamorous relationship, because it's out there, right? And it hasn't been represented, and it would be really interesting to see that play out. Or even relationships where, you know, the non-player character, not even the player character, the non-player character is like, I'm not a sexual person.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in sex. I don't want to have sex, but I do still really care about you, and I think you're a great person, and I'm in love with you, and that's what that is. And like, you know, showing that and what that looks like, because, you know, like, sure, I love, you know, super, you know, romantic
dramatic moments,
quote unquote dramatic romance. You know, like Cullen ravishing you on his desk or whatever. Like, yeah, great, but also like, show me something where like that's not always needed.
Yeah,
that's not needed. Like,
you listening, BioWare? You listening?
Yeah, you listening out there?
Right, we know 4 is coming. We're just saying.
I was about to say, I saw you throw that knife on Teventer, so I know it's coming.
Right.
Let's work on it,
right,
folks.
Just saying.
Yeah. So, it would be interesting to see where they go, and to also just, like, see more representation of, like, yeah, it's great that you have, like, bisexual romances and, like, more than one female option for a female character, but, like, more. Because it's one of those, like, I still want more, like, give me a super feminine, lesbian, like, give me that. Because Josephine, while she is super feminine, is bisexual, and even then, like, this goes back to, even then, they don't really get into it that much, how she's bisexual. I guess they do kind of go into, oh, well, I was an aristocrat, and, like, in the court of Orlais, it's, like, kill or be killed, and so, like, you have these romances, but then they fall apart, and, like, it's all politics, and I'm just like, okay, I don't know about that. But, like, seeing something where, like, trying to find my words here, if bisexuality is something that is, like, openly accepted in Thedas, which is the world of DragonAge, like, if it's something that is openly accepted, it needs to be in more than just, like, a codex entry. Right. Because, like, sure, you can be like, oh, yeah, it's almost like when people are like, nobody cares about race, and like, great that you put it in a codex entry, but, like,
I should also see it.
Yeah, like, show it to me. Yes. And, like, it's more than just, like, oh, like, this, like, give me more. Like, write it into the story, not just, showing in, throwing in a visual of just, like, but look, there are so many skin tones in this city. It's, like, great. Like, how do they, like, have them talk to each other, or just be, like, talk about, like, the differences in race, like, even for fantasy races. Right. Beyond just the awful automatic trope that is given to a lot of races, which is slavery. Yes. Come on. Like, do more. Try harder. Right. Do more. Like, write that complexity instead of just the automatic, well, this race is enslaved. Like, great. Like, that's... Yeah. Okay, like, sure. Spelled it out plain and simple.
All right, we got slavery bad, good.
Yeah, slavery bad, good. Like, whatever. Right. Not good.
Right.
It's just... Elaborate on the things that are so complex in life and make them so complex in games. Because player agency... I personally think player agency is only going to get better if you do that, because then it's making you as a player see these things happen and feel these things happen, and also see different points of view where sometimes you might be uncomfortable. Like, life is uncomfortable sometimes, and if you don't put that in there and you don't spell it out and you don't have it in dialogue or in situations or anything like that, and you write, like, a 1-paragraph codex that maybe a couple hundred people are going to read, it's not enough. It just isn't. So, like, if you add more into it, the players will respond and they will become more immersed. Like, I'm sure it's a scary thing to write, and I'm sure you want to do it right and you don't want to offend people. And, like, I totally get it, but, like, do it. Like, write that in. Like, just, push that envelope. I don't know. That's just how I feel about it.
No, I love that. That actually sort of already answers what one of my questions was about whether or not players should be able to push back in-game against a character's chosen sexuality, and I mean chosen by the developers. And I think you're right that there's something to be said for this character is bisexual, this character is pansexual, this character is asexual, and, like, that's just who that character is, and you don't get to change that because you don't like it. Yeah. That's like reality. That's also just the reality of the game that you're playing in. Mm-hmm. So if you don't want to romance them, then don't romance them, but you still don't get to change who they inherently are. Right, exactly. And so I definitely think I think that's a really good point. I like the idea of being able to play a game and be sort of exposed to something that is new and unknown to you, but in an area and in an environment that you feel safe.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, when you think about players, sometimes when they pick up your game, this is the first game that they've picked up
Yeah.
Or it could even be the first game that they've picked up that gives them the option to romance the same sex.
I mean, I was really surprised when I heard people talking about DragonAge, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, the guy, and he gets the girl, and then it's more than that.
Yeah. And just like, I mean, especially when, you know, when Inquisition comes out, like, there are going to be teenagers who pick up that game.
Yeah.
And realize, you know, they're like, well, I'm not interested in any of, you know, the opposite sex options. Like, I'm interested in the same sex options. And, like, it is a safe space for them to explore that and explore, like, what sexuality could mean for the player. And that takes player agency somewhere that becomes so immensely personal, but also so wonderful. And that's what makes these games so wonderful, is being able to maybe discover parts of yourself that you either didn't know about or were told never to talk about or explore, and allows you to do that and, like, watch love blossom, right? And, like, see what it's like to have, like, a healthy relationship like that, and show, like, even if it is a video game, that, like, you can find that, and, like, that's something that's out there for you, and you feel represented, and you matter, and that's really important.
Oh, Miss Foxy Mittens. I mean, I think it's a wonderful way to wrap up our entire discussion about video games and characters and sexuality and gender and player agency. I mean, yeah, I think that's a beautiful way to wrap it up. Do you have anything that you would like to say or add, shout outs, requests to BioWare, or any other game company, things you would like to see? I mean, I feel like we all know you want to see more. I feel like a lot of us want to see more.
Yeah, I mean, oh gosh.
Yeah, I definitely want to see more.
Give me the closure and the soulless romance that I so justly deserve, BioWare.
Actually, you know what? I watched you play that, and I agree.
Yeah,
I didn't play it.
Give me closure, like solid, good closure.
I would like that. I'd also like more POC.
Yes, please.
As well, that are playable characters, and that can be romance, because
yes, please.
We didn't even get into that, and I don't think we necessarily need to. We'll do another show on
let me romance Vivian, please.
Yeah,
she's beautiful.
Yeah, she is. That's all I got for you. Yeah. So okay, all right. Well, thank you so much, Foxy, for being here. To our listeners, that's all the wonders that I have to share with you today. To continue the discussion, you can find me on Twitter at Tanagra GGNOC. Foxy, do you want to be found?
You can find me on Tumblr.
Of course. Thanks for joining. Make choices and don't frolic up.